one of my teammates asked me the other day, he's like, Christy, what can I do to start training for a fight? And I told him one of the biggest things and most important things, like if you're running at the track, you don't want to be comfortable. You don't want to run at a comfortable pace where like I'm okay, I can get through this. Okay, if I keep on going like this, I'm gonna get through that mile, and still be able to talk and walk and do whatever I normally do
Hmm.
after. You need to be at a pace where you are sprinting for your life for that 1 mile. If you say I'm gonna run a mile, you need to be sprinting, you need to be gassed, you need to be pushing yourself for that last lap to say like I'm gonna die right now. I'm
Hmm.
gonna flop down on the floor and you're gonna have to drag me the rest of the way if I keep going at that pace.
My name is Andrew Smitte.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Success with Smitty podcast. I got a super awesome guest here today. Her name is Christine Vicens. She is a professional bare knuckle fighter with a record of 2-0. She's been doing martial arts for about 17 years, where she started with kickboxing, and she's also a Golden Gloves winner in boxing in 2009. She's a mom of 2 kids, and she is a business owner for a construction company. So, Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about yourself or anything that I might have missed.
Okay, well, like you mentioned, yeah, I started training mixed martial arts. Sorry, the dog.
You're good.
Started training martial arts about 17 or 18 years ago. Prior to that, I didn't really have any experience in sports or any sort of training. I did it because I wanted to lose weight and just start a routine and get in shape. So I joined like a cardio kickboxing class. And I thought it was a lot of fun and I loved hitting stuff, for the first time. I had never really like been in a fight or punched and kicked things. I jumped into a self-defense class after that, just to learn more technique,
Hmm.
and I loved it. I I really like just felt empowered and it was cool, and offered the chance to compete. And that was like after my first competition, I was just in love with it. The way that I could like push myself and set a goal
Mm.
um and go after something that was like uncommon,
Hmm.
at least to like women and in general at that time. So I got hooked.
That's awesome. So, like, when you made that first decision to commit to, I guess, starting like your bare knuckle, like your first official fight, like, was it really scary? Like, what did you feel when you accepted it?
Yeah, no, it was definitely scary. Like I said, I've never been in a fight. I've always been like super peace and love, and I
Hmm.
don't want to like have any issues or trouble with anybody. I did have a lot of training behind me. Like I knew that I put in the work, so at least that gave me the confidence that I needed. But I was super nervous. Even to this day, I still get nervous every single
Hmm.
competition. I don't think
Right.
that I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah. Well, I know even Mike Tyson, he's like, if you're not scared walking into the ring, like if you don't feel those nerves, then you're probably going to lose because those nerves are what help you.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry about the dogs. So
You're good.
after you throw that first punch, like it just all goes out the window though. Like all those
Mm.
nerves and you just go on autopilot after that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's your training kicks in.
yeah, I feel like it's kind of the same with me. I swim. And so, like, for me, it's like right when you get up on the block, it's like the anticipation is the worst part. And then, like, once you actually jump in the water and take your first stroke or two, then it's just like everything just takes care of itself. It's just, you just get into the zone and it's just flow.
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes in. Like I think they say in order for something to become a habit, you have to do it like 10,000 times.
Hmm.
That's where your training and that response mechanism of your body will kick in. And it's like, okay, you forget that you're in competition and this is just what I know. It's what I do. It's a habit. It's my,
Hmm.
um, I guess that, once that kicks in, everything else just goes out the window and you do what you do, what you've been training for.
Exactly. Right. So, what have you done to be able to balance like the fighting training, being a mom, obviously, and then a business owner? Like, how do you balance all that? Because that just sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. I'm still working on it. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of give and take. So the way that I've been able to balance it is that when I have a fight, when I say yes to a fight, I know that I have to fully commit. Training is twice a day. I'm training 4 hours a day in total, commuting back and forth, and not only the training, but I have to do physical therapy so my body can keep up with it. My nutrition, there's so many parts of it, and they all have to play into this fight camp. So the
Hmm.
way that I'm able to do it is by delegating. As far as work, before I even say yes to a fight, I need to see where I am as far as work. If it's like a slow season, then I'm like, okay, I can do this.
Hmm.
And I'll delegate to my employees. My husband picks up a lot of slack at home. Like he's the one that's gonna have to take them to school, pick them up, help me after school while I'm training. And uh that's how I'm able to get in all those hours of training during that time. I'm always connected on my phone. I'm always, up late regardless, answering emails and whatnot, and available to
Hmm.
my clients. But I do delegate a lot more.
Hmm.
Um, then once I'm done with my fight, like now I'm not training as much. I'll go to the gym once a day, 6 times a week, but I'm definitely more focused on like picking up the slack now, catching up, finding the new clients, going out there and getting back on the hustle, doing a lot more things with my family on the weekends, and like I said, picking up the slack, and
Hmm.
dedicating more time to whatever I neglected the last few months during fight camp.
Yeah. What was your husband's reaction like when you first like take a fight? Like, is he kind of like, oh gosh, I'm scared, or what does he think?
Yeah, I think at first he's like, oh gosh, are you sure? Do you want to do this? Why don't you make it your last one? But then when he sees I'm truly committed, like, no, I'm doing this, I'm going forward. He's just like, he's my biggest cheerleader as far as like that. He's always motivating me and telling me that I'm gonna win, and he's like, just really really a great motivation, and he helps the kid. He gets the kids involved too. Where he's like, yeah, your mom's a champ. Your mom's gonna go train because she's gonna kick your butt. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's really nice.
Hmm.
And then he worries about me. Obviously, like now I'm injured. I had to repair my pinky. I have two
Mm.
fractures in my fingers. One of them I had to get surgery on. So
Oof.
he's like, I hate to see you hurt, but
Yeah.
I mean, he knows that I'm not it up. So
Yeah. It comes with the sport, I'm sure.
yeah,
So I'm just curious, like, how do you, because I know with bare knuckle, obviously there's a lot less padding. Like, you don't have boxing gloves to kind of cushion your hands and things like that. So, like, what kind of training do you do to try to keep your bones in your hands strong from potentially
yeah.
breaking or getting fractured and stuff?
Okay, so that's I mean the biggest difference from boxing to bare knuckle is that you have no padding whatsoever on your knuckles. When you wrap up, you have to wrap up 1 inch below your knuckles. So I only have wrap on my wrist, which is good because at least I have my wrist protected, but my
Mm-hmm.
knuckles are completely exposed. What I did is I started hitting something called a makiwara. It's
Mm.
a Japanese padding. It's like a wood block that has a leather wrap on it, and I would just hit it and hit it and hit it
Mm.
continuously, slowly and controlled to just start to condition my knuckles. Um, it got my knuckles really sore most of the time. So as soon as I would feel that I was in pain, I'd give them a rest, put boxing gloves back on, do my regular pad work and mitt work for a week or however long I needed to kind of rest. And then go back to training either without like hitting the bag softly without gloves at all, or putting on my MMA gloves, which have
Mm.
6 ounce padding, as
Mm.
opposed to like 12, 14, or 16 with boxing gloves.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just conditioning the knuckles by hitting the bags, hitting the pads lightly and controlled, not going
Mm.
crazy, because then if I hurt myself in training, I have to take time off, and that would be counterproductive in my fight camp.
Right.
Uh, Even and like doing push-ups, doing planks, I would do them on my knuckles to
Mm.
strengthen my forearms, my wrist, and my knuckles.
Mm. That's really interesting. It reminds me a lot. I think it's of like the monks, like in Shaolin Kung Fu.
Mhm.
they punch something. I forget what it is, but it might be it's like maybe sand or like rice or something like that. I think something similar to that, and that's I know what they do to try to like get their bones really strong. That's how they can like break through like cinder blocks and things. It's crazy.
Yeah. I have a bag, like a canvas bag that I also fill with rice. So I'll hit
Hmm.
that also.
Okay, nice. So what is your, I guess, your typical day look like? Um, from, I guess, when you are training for a fight, and then like when you're just trying to maintain like throughout your whole day with like being a mom, being a business owner, and then also fighting. Like, what does your typical day look like?
Okay, so like during fight camp, which for me, a lot of people do have their like official fight camp like 6 or 8 weeks out from their fight. I like to get an early start just because it is a new sport for me, bare knuckle.
Hmm.
And I'm just like that. I like to overtrain. So like 12 weeks out, 3 months out, I'll start really like getting prepared for this fight mentally and physically. What I do during that time, so like 6:30 in the morning, we're all up, get my kids ready for school. My husband takes them, so like at least I get a little more flexibility because he drops them off. But I'll get them ready for school, and from there I grab my gear and I get in the car and I drive to Miami Gardens, which is about a 30-minute drive for me every
Hmm.
morning. I To see my boxing coach, and I'll train with him for like an hour and a half. After that, come back home, I'll have my breakfast, get on the computer, answer phone calls, answer emails, and that again is nonstop. I own my own business, so even during training, I'll be, my phone will sound and it's a client or an employee, and I have to stop what I'm doing and answer. But after that, after I have breakfast, answer my calls, my emails, a couple of times a week, I'll have a physical therapy session where I'll go in either because like I have back pain or knee pain. I have 3 knee surgeries
Oh
from
wow.
training. So yeah, there's a lot of kinks and aches that I have to take care of.
Hmm.
Um, and then by the time I'm done with that, it's, prepare lunch, answer more calls, more emails. I have Sometimes I'll do like the cryotherapy,
Mm.
uh, and then pick up my kids from school, help them with homework, get the dinner together. And then at night, I would go back to the gym. This time I'm going to my MMA gym, my mixed
Mm.
martial arts gym, because in bare knuckle, you have a combination of boxing and a lot of clinch work, which is
Mm.
not common to boxing. So that's one of the other differences where you can actually clinch with one hand
Ah.
and you can continue to punch with the other one. It's not
Mm.
like in boxing where you're resting on each other and then they break you up. Here they won't
Hmm.
break you up as long as you continue to punch.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, and in wrestling, in mixed martial arts wrestling, I got really good at clinch work. So that's why I go to the
Mm.
MMA gym, and I do a lot of that.
Mm.
And by the time I'm done there, it's like 10 o'clock at night, come home, shower, eat something really quick, and get to bed because I got to do it all over again at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's intense. Two maybe twice a week I'll go to physical therapy, um, and then other days I'll do either out like massage therapy, conditioning workouts. I'll swap a couple of sessions a week from boxing or MMA to actually strength and conditioning.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a
Dang.
really busy time for me.
Hmm.
When I don't have a fight camp, then that changes. I get same thing. I wake up, I get my kids ready for school, but after that I'll do my session sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening, depending if it's something I'm gonna do at the gym or if I want to do a martial arts class that day. But I will limit it to just once a day.
Hmm.
Sometimes I want to do more, but I have to remind myself to not physically push myself so much because I do have injuries and things that I have to take care
Hmm.
of. And then it's just, doing mom stuff, visiting sites, construction sites, clients, phone
Hmm.
calls, emails, and then by 3:40 or 4 p.m., I have the kids at home and it's game over. Yeah, just like,
Nice.
yeah, focus on the kids and just family life.
Dang. Man, so you must like, were you always pretty good at time management, or is that something you just kind of had to learn?
Definitely, it's a work in progress. I gotta learn. I'm typically, running nonstop. I'm late to something. I always like still struggling with time management, but getting there.
Yeah.
I do try to prioritize the most I can in my mind at least, or writing it down. Like these things need to get done today, and
Hmm.
these other things, we'll just push them into the schedule if I have the right timing for it.
Hmm. Awesome. And then, like, what kind of mental training do you do?
Mental training. So that is I mean, that is the most important thing if you ask me.
Hmm.
um, or at least 50% of it, because anyone can go to the gym and learn to throw a punch or train or hit something. But it takes a whole different kind of training to be able to push yourself past the boundaries, past those limits where your body would just say stop.
Right.
And I guess it's just something that I have in me from a young age. There's been a lot of things that I've had to push through. And when I realized, even when I was young, like it's something as simple as being, I was very depressed as a teenager. Just like my father's bipolar, it runs in my family. There were just so many issues growing up, and I started to fall into a depression, and until I can't pinpoint what exactly it was, but there was a turning point where I said, "This is not who I'm going to be. I'm not going to be my father. I'm not going to fall into this like this hole." And because I know personally, once you get there, like you're just going to go down and down and medication, and you get
Hmm.
swallowed up by that. So I made a decision. I said, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to get out of this. And that's when I started working out actually. So I found something else to kind of like channel that all those emotions into, and I maybe that's why I became so obsessed with training with martial arts, because I found it as an escape
Mm.
from that. But once I learned how powerful the mind was, because after that it was gone. Like I wasn't depressed. I said I'm
Mm.
not gonna be that person, and I was fine. And I understand it's not the case for everybody, but I understood the power of my mind and of that decision that I made. Um, and I always remind myself of that, like what I believe, what I put my mind on, what I set myself up for, I can accomplish it if I want to. But if I let the negativity come in, if I let those doubts come in, then I will also allow that to happen. So it's just
Hmm.
it's in my hands basically. Like I have a decision to make. Am I going to make the right choice and go in the positive direction, or am I going to be swallowed up by these like negative thoughts and feelings and fears and doubts?
Hmm.
And it's just understanding how powerful that is,
Yeah.
and how much control you actually do have.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. I know that actually is like one of the things that studies have shown helps with depression is just exercising. Like if you just exercise, because obviously it gets your endorphins up, and then especially when you have like a goal and you feel like you kind of have a purpose or something that you're training for, I feel like it almost can distract you from like what you're feeling at the time if it's negative, you know? So,
Yeah. And then after that, I just made a decision that when I set a goal or a challenge for myself, I don't back away from it.
hmm.
And even with like, I don't make promises that I can't keep. And I hate when people
Right.
make promises, because I'm like, if you make a promise to me, you better keep it, because that's how I am.
Yes.
And that's how I am with like the goals and challenges in general. Like I won't say that I'm gonna do something and not do it. So
Hmm.
even when it comes to fighting, like when I step into the ring, I say like I am here. It's not even a thought in my mind to lose.
Hmm.
And doesn't mean that I slack off on training, or like I train my butt off, and I know that I have that to back me up, because
Hmm.
you do need that, obviously the physical training to take into the ring with you. But I know that once I step in there, I'm not walking out of there without a win.
Hmm.
So that's it. Like I go on into this mode where like you're gonna have to kill me and drag me out of here. I'm not going with a loss.
That's awesome.
And
I love that.
yeah, so I basically say if this girl, whoever I'm in there with, they're gonna have to kill me and drag me out. I'm gonna give it everything I have.
Heck yeah. That's so awesome. What about, do you do a lot of visualization as well?
I do. I do during my training, like even when I'm shadow boxing, which is I'm there by myself, looking in the mirror or with my headphones, and I'm
Hmm.
shadow boxing. I'm visualizing my opponent in front of me. I'm not just like punching to punch, throwing a jab and a cross because I need to. I am
Hmm.
visualizing her in front of me. And most of the time, I've already seen a couple of fights if they're available online.
Hmm.
So I'll see the way that she moves, things that she likes to throw, and I'll visualize it and I'll see it, and I'll use my footwork, I'll use my punches, my head movement, to evade those punches coming at me, which is like this imaginary person who's fighting with me. So I do visualize, in that sense. I visualize my win, my hands coming up at the end. If it's a
Hmm.
championship belt, I'm carrying that belt, I'm showing it to my kids. So yeah, I do. I definitely I see it happening.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and that's why I say like there's no way out. I don't even imagine the loss in my head. I don't imagine
Mhm.
like what if I lose? What am I no. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, definitely. That's super awesome. Well, what about like right before the fight, leading up to it, like literally the night before? Because I know, for example, like with my swim meets, if I have a really big swim meet, like my national meet or whatever it is, the night before, especially if it's like your main event, it's like, oh man, like you're at least for me, I struggle with playing all these thoughts in my head, like going through my race. It just keeps coming. It's like I can't sleep very well. I feel super anxious and nervous, and not because like I know I have also like the training to back me up, and like I know what I'm capable of, but it's just like man, like I don't know, it's just like all the thoughts come in, and it's just like nonstop. Like how do you deal with all those thoughts, and like what does the night before feel like for you?
Yeah. So I do the night before, yeah, and a few nights before, you start thinking a lot about tomorrow night. This is what's gonna happen. I've got good at pushing away any thoughts. If they're negative, I don't want them. I don't think about them, and I quickly replace it with that thought of me holding up my hands, winning, celebrating, after party. I just
Mhm.
start to shove those images in my head and push out the other ones. I also try to keep myself distracted, which is very easy in my case because I have my kids. I don't have that downtime where I'm just laying there thinking. And if I do find myself with a lot of downtime, I'll get up, I'll clean, I'll do something to distract myself because the
Mhm.
mind, like I mentioned earlier, the mind is a very powerful thing.
Right.
So if you find yourself not focused on the right kind of thoughts, distract yourself, do something else, quickly shift, make that mind shift because you don't
Hmm.
want to allow those things in. If you, well, I don't know if you saw my last fight, but something when you're fighting, the one of the challenges that you have is not getting mentally broken inside the ring. And I think
Mm.
that's what happened with my last opponent. She was a very experienced fighter. She's from UFC. She has 12 pro fights. I think she has 3 or 4 fights in UFC.
Mm.
um but if you see after, like in the first round, she kind of just like stopped fighting back, and would just like cling
Mm.
on to me, and I think she was just mentally broken. So if
Mm.
you go in there with that mindset, like, man, this girl might get me with the right punch or whatever, and then it's doomed after that. If you go in with that mentality, you're going to break very easily inside the ring.
Mhm.
I think that's what happened to my opponent.
Mm.
Um, but if you go with that mentality, like for example, how I went in, like, I don't care if this girl has a powerful jab, if she has a powerful cross, if she knocked out her last opponent, I'm not gonna let that happen to me, or I'm gonna take a punch, but I'm gonna keep going. You turn that around in your mind, and you say, okay, so what? She got one. I'm gonna get three. You,
Mhm.
and you push forward. So
Mm.
definitely, making sure you don't allow those negative thoughts and keeping yourself distracted.
Mhm.
Um, because again, if you have the backing of your training and you put in all the work, there's nothing to worry about. You couldn't have done any more.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, obviously, like with like MMA or boxing or any physical combat sport, it's almost like another level of mental toughness you have to have, because obviously you're getting physically and mentally like beat, like you're getting punched in the face and stuff like that. And I mean, not everyone can take a punch very well. And so when you're constantly getting hit, obviously over time you might start to feel mentally like drained and like demoralized a little bit, like, man, this person's kicking my butt, or like, man, she's got like a hard punch or whatever. So just to be able to stay strong through that, like, you got to have some serious mental toughness.
Yeah. And you know what? Something my coach would tell me is when you're exhausted, whether in training and fighting, let's say you're exhausted, you're gassed, you want to quit, you got to stop. What happens if you're in a scenario where someone, you're like hunched over, you can't breathe, and all of a sudden a bad guy comes in with your kid and a knife to his throat and says,
Mm.
I'm gonna hurt your son if for whatever reason. You're gonna get an adrenaline rush. You
Oh
don't
yeah.
care how tired you are. You're gonna be able to either run after them, kick their butt, do whatever you gotta do. Until then, eventually, way later, you'll probably hit that wall where you physically cannot do more. But if someone, comes up to you and says, I'm gonna shoot you right now if you don't run another mile, you're probably gonna start running. And
Oh
you're
yeah.
gonna find that second win.
Hmm.
So that's where you have to think it's, you're setting your own limitations, and you usually can do a lot more.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good example. It's even like there's been stories of where moms will literally pick up cars like off their kids if they get hit and stuff like that. It's like the
Yeah.
same thing. It's crazy. But so do you have like another fight that you're currently training for? Like, what's your next goal right now?
Next goal, well, I'm healing these guys up. I have
Yeah.
fractures that have me limited for about another 4 weeks or so.
Hmm.
Um, After that, I want to have another fight. I wasn't sure whether I was gonna keep pursuing bare knuckle or not,
Hmm.
but now I'm actually really into it, and I do want to keep going and eventually maybe bring home a belt.
Hmm.
After my last fight, my one of my sons was like, "Cool, mom, I'm glad you won. So where's the belt?" And I'm like, I don't know, but I might have to bring one home. Now, but so that kind of motivated me, and
Hmm.
I do want to move forward because with bare knuckle, there's actually a lot of room for growth. It's up and coming. Shaquille O'Neal is a big investor now, and BKF is at the last fight, and it's just growing rapidly. So I think it's definitely a couple of years from now, this is going to be like the next UFC. So I do want to keep going. I do have to see when physically I can fight again because of my hands. And like I said, it's a lot of balancing. Like during the summer months, I have my kids at home and it gets very difficult to train, 4 hours a day and still take care of them and run my business.
Hmm.
So it may not be during the summertime, but while they're still in school and my husband could pick up the slack and I have, slow work on the construction side and employees to delegate to. So all those things kind of have to just come together for it to be that ideal time to get into another fight
Hmm.
camp. So
Yeah.
I want to do, another fight or two this year.
That's awesome. Wait, so let's say for example, if you're like in one of like you're in a fight, like you're fighting your opponent, and I'm guessing obviously like the broken or like fractured hand is from punching the other person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
Most likely it was for making a really strong fist and then having that impact push my fingers back.
hmm. So like, do you feel it right when it happens? Like when you hit the person, you're like, oof, there goes my knuckles, or do you just like keep going? And you just don't feel it because of the adrenaline rush, or what?
I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I don't feel anything in that ring. A lot of the time I just get into a zone. I don't even know what I threw, what I didn't throw, what I didn't throw. Like after I have to watch it and be like, I did that or what was that?
Like, dang, I'm a beast.
She's like, no, and even with her hitting me, I'm like, oh, she hit me. I didn't even feel that.
Hmm.
I do notice right away, like if my nose is bleeding,
Hmm.
I tend to bleed a lot, but that's something that like the second it bleeds, I don't even pay attention to it because if you start thinking, oh wow, I'm bleeding, and you look, a lot of people start messing with their nose and trying to wipe themselves. Now your mind has shifted from beating this opponent to wow, I might be hurt. Why am I
Hmm.
bleeding? Oh my gosh, are they gonna stop the fight? And your focus kind of shifts. So I was like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm bleeding. I didn't even touch it or look at it. I just kept going. Um, that's the only thing that I noticed during the fight. Maybe there was one or two punches where I'm like, oh, she got me. Okay, I'm gonna get her back.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I didn't feel anything until after. I didn't even know it was fractured until like a day or two after that. I was like, I
Oh
think I need to
wow.
check this out.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. Do you have someone in the sport that you really look up to, or maybe even outside of the sport, or maybe like not specifically in bare knuckle, but boxing or anything like that?
Well, my coach, his name is Marcos Avalon. He's the one who I
Mhm.
told you mentally has been able to help me a lot. Like I said about like, sometimes we're training, he's like, pretend they have your kid and they're gonna kill him. What are you gonna do? Keep going.
Mhm.
And he wrote a book called Black Belt Psychology, which helped
Mm.
me a lot with visualization, and just having that mental strength and not quitting. He also was the trainer for Kimbo Slice. I don't know if you're
Mm.
familiar with
Yeah,
Kimbo
yeah.
Slice, and for George Masvidal when they used to fight in
Oh
backyard
wow.
fights. So he has
Dang.
a lot of knowledge in that. Definitely one of my big mentors. And I mean, there's a few people like warrior. My mom has a great warrior mentality that has taught me kind
Mhm.
of just like to push through and mental toughness, and a lot of experiences in life in general.
Mhm.
Have helped me. But yeah, I mean my coaches, my teammates, everyone at my gym at Freestyle Fighting Academy is really um someone to look forward to.
Mm.
Sorry, someone that I look up to.
Yeah.
Um or people that I look up to. Uh yeah, and my parents. That's it.
Yeah. Nice. What do you feel like drives you in general, like whether it's in the sport or outside of the sport or just yeah, in life?
um so I'm learning a lot about myself. I think most recently I realized that I'm just driven by challenges, by setting goals, by doing things that are out of the box. For example, fighting, obviously,
Hmm.
being a female in the sport, not having any athletic experience prior to like my 20s. Um, and like flying, I was getting my pilot's license at one point, learning to fly a Cessna, just things that I'm like, not many people do that, so I want to do
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And it's more about like just challenging myself and growing through it.
Hmm.
Um, that's what I find that I like, that I enjoy the most, the journey, I guess, of
Hmm.
pushing those boundaries, learning um and setting those goals. So
Hmm.
that's really what drives me.
Definitely, that's cool. Do you like you've heard of David Goggins, right? Do you know who that is?
No, I'm not familiar with.
Oh wait, you really?
No.
Okay, after the podcast, I'll talk to you about him because I think you'll really like his stuff. But what do you do as far as like recovery and like I know you said you do cryotherapy, and then physical therapy, and what else do you do to help yourself recover?
Yeah, just physical therapy, massage therapy, give myself my body some TLC. Um, try to schedule a massage every once in a while. Um, Time with the kids, with the family, like on the weekend, on Sundays when I'm not training and I'm resting, I just try to like go to the beach and hang out and remember the little things in life, that we sometimes take for granted.
Hmm.
Um, excuse me. um yeah, that's, besides physical, you need to kind of disconnect mentally as well.
Hmm. Nice, definitely. And then last question before I get into, I got some speed questions I ask at the end of every podcast. But what do you do to help yourself get into the zone?
um to get into the zone, uh visualization, like I said, I if I'm starting my workout and I'm shadow boxing, I'm thinking, okay, this is me in the locker room and I'm starting to warm up, get the blood flowing, and then I envision myself like walking out into the ring and seeing my opponent, and that kind of gets me pumped, get those endorphins going. Um and when I'm training, I'm just like, okay, I need to get, what am I getting out of this training session? I'm not gonna leave the same way I came out. We have a big quote up on the wall at the gym that I think it's by Dan Gable, a wrestler. And he says that his goal every time he went into a training session was to be dragged out, literally dragged out.
Oh, wow.
And that just, that I'm coming in here with a goal. I'm going to get better. I'm going to train. I'm going to condition myself for this fight or whatever goal I have in mind. And if I'm not pushing myself and pushing those boundaries, then I'm wasting my time. So, just telling myself that mentally and letting my body kind of just physically get there as well. Um, that's how I get into the zone. One of my teammates asked me the other day, he's like, Christy, what can I do to start training for a fight? And I told him one of the biggest things and most important things, like if you're running at the track, you don't want to be comfortable. You don't want to run at a comfortable pace where like, I'm okay, I can get through this. Okay, if I keep on going like this, I'm gonna get through that mile, and still be able to talk and walk and do whatever I normally do after. You need to be at a pace where you are sprinting for your life for that 1 mile. If you say I'm gonna run a mile, you need to be sprinting, you need to be gassed, you need to be pushing yourself for that last lap to say like, I'm gonna die right now. I'm gonna flop down on the floor and you're gonna have to drag me the rest of the way, if I keep going at that pace. And that's how I try to push myself in every workout. So I'm, like I said, you're dragging me out. Same thing that you're dragging me out of the ring. On fight, you're gonna be dragging me out of this gym. And that's where you start to push those mental boundaries, and that eventually you take with you into competition.
That's awesome. I love that mentality. That's super awesome. I'm thinking about it in swimming. It's like, man, you might have to drag me out of the pool, or like, hopefully not the bottom of the pool, but but okay, actually, one more thing before the speed questions is like, do you have any like advice or any tips for like upcoming fighters or just anyone who's like trying to pursue their dream of any industry, things like that?
Um, advice. Like, um, like I said, it's most of this is about mental training and having that, not only the physical strength, but having that mental strength and knowing that anything is possible. Look at me, I'm a mother, I'm a businesswoman, I didn't have any athletic experience, and to go into a sport like fighting, especially bare knuckle boxing,
Right.
would have seemed, way out of line or almost impossible. So it's setting the goal, doing the work. You got to do the work, and
Right.
it's not gonna happen from one day to the next. You got to do the work, and you have to be proactive and actually getting out there, pursuing it, putting your name out there, finding who are the people in this industry that I need to know, reaching out to them. You can't just sit back and say, oh, I'm great, I'm going to be a champ one day and they'll come to me. Like you have to um do the research. If you have to fly into a different town to train to meet the right people, you got to do it. But definitely set the goal and take the steps little by little. You're gonna get there. You just have to do the work.
Awesome. Definitely amazing advice. And then, so you ready for the speed questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, they may not be like super speedy. You'll see what I mean when I ask them, because some of it might make you think a little bit. But first question is, what's the best piece of advice that you've got that's impacted you the most?
Impacted me the most. I don't know about that one.
I know they're hard because like there's so many probably good pieces of advice you got.
A deep question. What is it? Don't. So I guess maybe it's not someone that's given it to me. It's my own advice is don't let someone tell you what your boundaries and your limitations are. And in the case, like I was saying, for example, when I was young, that I actually saw a psychiatrist, and she's like, "Well, you might be bipolar like your father, so let's put you on Zoloft and prescribe this medication to you." And that's when I was like, after like a month into it, I was like, "No, wait a second. This lady's not gonna tell me who I am, what I have, what my limitations are." And I was able to overcome it. So don't let someone put that label or that stamp on you, because you have a lot of power with your thinking and your mind.
Mhm.
So yeah, don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do.
That's awesome. And then, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote. I have to find that Dan Gable quote because I really like it. The one
Yeah,
about
like
getting
the
dragged off the mats.
yeah, yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
And then, what book do you recommend that everyone should read?
Oh, that one is definitely Tim Grover,
Hmm.
Relentless. That's the first one I read, and then he also has the second book, Winning.
Hmm.
They really helped me to discover why I think this way, and that I'm not and that I'm not alone in this. You know, some of
Hmm.
the top athletes in the world have the same kind of thinking, and it's good
Hmm.
to know I'm not alone and how to embrace that.
Yeah. And guys, you guys have heard it many times on the podcast to get these books, Relentless and Winning. Actually, I have one under my computer right here, Winning. So you guys need to check that out. And then, do you have any shout outs or call outs?
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Any shout outs or call outs?
Oh yeah, definitely. Shout out to my husband who really picks up the slack. Like I said, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have the support, the moral support, and the help with my kids.
Hmm.
My team, Freestyle Fighting Academy, it's where I train out of, and El Toro Loco, they are my management team and my sponsors here in Miami. So they play a big role in everything because without any of them, this wouldn't be possible.
Awesome. And then, where can people find you if they want to keep up, like, with your journey and your career?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Christy, Christy, Fit, Fit, MMA. So Christy Fit MMA. I'm on Instagram.
Perfect. And I'll link that in the description so people can find it pretty easy as well. And yeah, thank you, Christine. I appreciate you hopping on the podcast and being a guest. It was awesome talking with you.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting me.
of course.